57%. That is the number of American workers who are currently operating with less than $25,000 in savings.
Which is just, I mean, that's wild.
It really is. And if you zoom in closer on the data, the picture gets, well, substantially darker. 1 in 3 Americans have absolutely nothing in the bank. 0.
Yeah, it's a completely staggering statistic when you pause to really internalize it. We're talking about a third of the workforce walking a financial tightrope without a net.
Right.
It means the traditional American dream, the house, the comfortable retirement, the underlying sense of security is effectively slipping away for a massive portion of the population.
Exactly.
What we have instead is this chronic low-grade fever of living paycheck to paycheck, where one blown transmission or like one unexpected medical bill equals total insolvency.
It's terrifying. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are tearing into David Bach's The Automatic Millionaire.
It's a classic.
It really is. And our objective today isn't just to give you, a standard book summary. We are going to deconstruct what is arguably one of the most proven, mechanically sound systems for wealth creation ever designed for the everyday retail investor.
Yeah, and the core promise of this system is really what makes it so fascinating, because it requires absolutely zero discipline, no budgeting whatsoever, and a starting capital of less than $10 a day.
Which sounds like an infomercial pitch, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
That specific promise, the no discipline and no budgeting part, it flies directly in the face of the entire personal finance industrial complex.
Right, because if you go on social media or you listen to traditional financial advisors, the pillars they preach are always austerity, willpower, and meticulous tracking.
Exactly. But the central thesis we're exploring today argues that relying on human willpower is exactly why so many people are failing.
Right.
So we are going to look at the architectural mechanics of wealth building, and I warn you, it is incredibly boring.
So boring.
But it's completely automated and ruthlessly effective.
And to really understand that architecture, we have to look at the prototype, right? The catalyst for this entire philosophy comes from a couple named Jim and Sue McIntyre.
Right, the McIntyres.
Yeah, and they are the complete antithesis of, the Silicon Valley founder or the Wall Street hedge fund manager. They are a profoundly average income couple.
Very average. I think they never made more than a combined mid-five figures for most of their careers.
Exactly. Yet, in their early 50s, they walk into a financial advisor's office and just announce they are retiring.
Just dropping the mic.
Right. And they're not just scraping by, they're retiring with 2 completely debt-free homes and nearly $1 million in liquid invested assets.
Which, naturally, the assumption there is that they must have lived a draconian lifestyle.
Yeah, you assume they tracked every single penny on some crazy color-coded spreadsheet and, never took a vacation.
Right. But when they pull back the curtain on their methodology, the McIntyres reveal that they explicitly and actively avoided traditional budgeting.
Wait, they never used a budget?
Never used a ledger. Nothing.
See, that is the part that trips people up.
Oh, for sure. The reason why budgeting failed for them, and honestly fails for the vast majority of Americans, is deeply rooted in behavioral economics.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. So traditional budgeting relies on what psychologists call ego depletion. Think of your willpower like your smartphone battery.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Right, so you wake up in the morning and the battery is at 100%. But every single micro decision you make throughout the day drains that battery.
Like deciding to skip the donut in the break room.
Exactly. Drain. You navigate a stressful meeting without losing your temper. Drain. You force yourself to do a difficult spreadsheet at work. Drain.
So by the time you get home...
By the time 8:00 p.m. rolls around, your willpower battery is deep in the red. You have total decision fatigue.
And that is exactly when you binge spend on Amazon.
Bingo. Or you order a $40 delivery meal you really don't need because cooking feels impossible. Budgeting requires chronic discipline.
Chronic discipline.
Right. It requires you to wake up every single day, look at a finite pool of resources, and make a conscious, painful choice to deny yourself present gratification for some future reward.
And human beings are simply not wired to sustain that level of daily friction over a 30-year time horizon.
No, we are evolutionary hardwired to consume calories and resources today because tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
Which brings us to the core mechanism the McIntyres utilized, and really the defining genius of this entire system. They swapped that chronic discipline for acute discipline.
Yes. This is the big paradigm shift.
You don't need to be financially disciplined every single day of your life. You only need to be financially disciplined for exactly 1 hour, one time.
And that hour changes everything.
Right. It's about manipulating friction.
Yeah, in behavioral design, we talk a lot about choice architecture and the power of default.
Like the organ donation study, right?
Exactly. If you look at countries that have an opt-out organ donation policy, participation is near 99%. But in countries with an opt-in policy, it drops to like 15%.
Yeah. Because people default to the path of least resistance.
Always. We were lazy by nature.
Hmm.
So the McIntyres set up their wealth accumulation to be the default state.
They used payroll deductions.
Yeah, payroll deductions and automated transfers. The money they wanted to save or invest or use to aggressively pay down their mortgage, it was all routed automatically before it ever even hit their primary checking account.
They basically plugged their financial plan directly into the wall outlet, so they never had to rely on that smartphone battery of willpower.
Right. If they wanted to stop saving, they had to generate immense friction.
They'd have to, log into an HR portal, print out a form, physically sign it.
Track down a fax machine, maybe?
Exactly, and submit it just to cancel the deduction. And since human nature is inherently lazy, they just let the default run.
And that's why, for the listener, if you have failed at budgeting in the past, you really need to understand that it is not a moral failing.
You aren't weak.
No, it is a systems design failing. You are trying to use a tool that literally goes against millions of years of evolutionary psychology.
But I feel like once you understand that you need to automate the system, the immediate practical hurdle for most people is just capital.
Finding the money.
Right. You're thinking, I'm already stretched entirely thin, my margins are zero. Where on earth do I find the extra money to feed this automated machine?
Which introduces us to the concept of unconscious capital leakage, or, as it's famously branded in this text, the Latte factor.
Ah, the Latte factor. The origin story here is great. It's about a student named Kim, right?
Yeah, Kim was taking one of the author's investment classes, and she pushes back hard. She says, the theory's great, but I live paycheck to paycheck. I simply cannot find $5 or $10 a day to save.
She literally thought her margins were zero.
Right. So they audit her daily routine. And it turns out her baseline involves a gourmet coffee and a muffin every single morning, which clocked in at roughly $5 a day back then.
Now, $5 feels like a rounding error. It feels completely insignificant in the context of, a macroeconomic life.
It does. But this is where the human brain fails to comprehend exponential compounding.
The math here is wild.
Let's run it. $5 a day is roughly $150 a month.
Okay.
If you take that $150 and instead of consuming it, you route it into an automated investment vehicle, yielding a historical 10% annual return.
The S&P 500 average, basically.
Exactly. Over 40 years, that trivial $5 daily habit compounds to nearly $1 million. To be exact, it's $948,611.
Almost $1 million in opportunity cost for a daily coffee and pastry.
Yep.
Now, we really have to pause here and address the elephant in the room. Because in modern financial discourse, the Latte factor has become a highly polarizing, even toxic concept to some people.
Oh, absolutely. It gets heavily, heavily criticized.
Right. The critique from modern economic commentators is that telling a millennial or Gen Z worker to just skip a coffee is wildly out of touch.
Yeah. They say it shames people for enjoying tiny, harmless daily luxuries while completely ignoring these massive, crushing macroeconomic realities.
Exactly. We are talking about severe wage stagnation against inflation, student loan debt that acts like a second mortgage, and housing costs in major U.S. cities that have far, far outpaced median incomes.
The pushback is basically, a $5 coffee isn't keeping me out of $1 million starter home in San Jose.
And that critique is completely valid on a macroeconomic level, right?
It is. The structural headwinds for wealth creation are significantly stiffer today than they were 30 years ago. That is just a fact. But we cannot let macroeconomic realities paralyze our microeconomic agency.
I love how you phrase that.
The underlying mathematics, and more importantly, the psychology of the latte factor, remain totally intact today. The latte is just a metaphor.
Right. It's not actually about coffee.
No. For some people, it's paying for 4 redundant streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO, and Disney when they only watch one.
Or eating a $15 fast casual lunch at Chipotle every day instead of meal prepping.
Or carrying a high-interest balance on a credit card just to fund weekend trips.
It's really about locus of control. If you hyper-focus on the Federal Reserve's interest rates or institutional private equity buying up single-family homes, you're placing your financial destiny in the hands of forces you cannot influence.
You develop learned helplessness.
Exactly. You just give up.
And the Latte factor shifts your locus of control back to your own balance sheet. It is an empowerment tool.
It proves to you empirically that you already possess hidden wealth-building potential.
Right. It's not about draconian deprivation. It's about realization. It's
Yeah.
that aha moment of discovering that the capital required to build the machine is actually already flowing through your hands.
You just have to capture it.
Exactly.
And today, capturing it doesn't require a leather-bound ledger or keeping a stack of receipts. Modern financial technology has completely automated the discovery of this leakage.
The tech is incredible now.
We have API-driven tools like Mint or Copilot or Monarch Money that link directly to your accounts and auto-categorize your spending. It gives you this stark, undeniable dashboard of your capital flow.
Yeah, and we even have micro-investing apps like Acorns that literally weaponize your spending habits.
Oh, I love Acorns for this.
Right. It rounds up the digital spare change from your daily purchases and just automatically invests it.
Those platforms make the invisible visible. They automate the tracking.
But once you have utilized these tools to locate that extra, say, 10 or 15% of your income, the critical question becomes allocation.
Where do you route that capital to achieve maximum leverage?
Which takes us into the absolute bedrock principle of wealth creation.
Pay yourself first.
Yes. Think about how a mature corporation operates, right? A business has top-line revenue.
Right.
Before they pay external vendors, before they pay the landlord, they calculate their margins and secure their retained earnings. But as individuals, we operate our personal balance sheets in completely the opposite manner.
We truly do. The average American receives their biweekly direct deposit, and who is at the front of the line?
The government.
The federal government takes its tax cut before the money even clears.
Then the landlord gets paid.
The auto loan servicer gets paid, the credit card company takes its minimum payment, the cell phone provider takes their cut.
You are systematically deploying your labor to build the equity and wealth of everyone else's corporations.
And then at the end of the month, if there happens to be a tiny sliver of capital left over, you try to save it, you pay yourself last.
Which is a mathematical guarantee of mediocrity.
It really is. So the Automatic Millionaire rule flips the hierarchy completely. You must pay yourself a minimum of 10% of your gross income, and you must do it before taxes.
You jump to the front of the line, even ahead of the IRS.
Let's really unpack the mechanics of this, because this is where the U.S. tax code genuinely favors the retail worker if they know how to play the game.
We are talking about maximizing pre-tax retirement vehicles. The 401k for corporate employees, the 403b for nonprofits and teachers, or a SEP IRA if you're an entrepreneur.
The disparity between pre-tax capital accumulation and post-tax capital accumulation is just staggering.
Let's run a scenario so people can visualize this. Let's say you want to save $1. If you try to save that dollar in a standard brokerage account or a savings account after taxes, the government has already taken their pound of flesh.
Right. Depending on your state and federal bracket, that dollar might instantly be reduced to roughly 77 cents.
Exactly. You are starting the race 23 yards behind the starting line.
But when you route that exact same dollar through a payroll deduction into a pre-tax 401k, the IRS defers the taxation.
A full, uncompromised dollar enters the compounding machine.
And now we introduce the single most powerful multiplier in personal finance.
The employer match.
Yes. Let's use a conservative example from the book where a company matches 25% of your contribution.
Okay, so your $1 instantly becomes $1.25.
Right. Add historical annualized market growth over the first 12 months, say 10%, and that single pre-tax dollar is suddenly worth around $1.38.
Look at that delta.
It's massive. After taxes, you're sitting at 77 cents. Inside the automated 401k with a match, you have $1.38.
That is nearly a 100% instant return on your capital.
In the world of corporate finance, capital allocation is governed by hurdle rates, the minimum acceptable return on an investment.
Right.
If a Fortune 500 CEO was offered a guaranteed, risk-free 100% return on capital and they turned it down, the board of directors would fire them before lunch.
Absolutely. It's the only legal cheat code available to the American middle class. Leaving an employer match on the table is the mathematical equivalent of your boss trying to hand you a stack of $100 bills and you just swatting it away.
And yet millions of people bypass this because they believe their cash flow is too tight to absorb the deduction.
Which is why we need to talk about benchmarking wealth tiers based on savings rates.
Yeah.
It provides a diagnostic reality check for the listener.
Let's go through them.
If your savings rate is 0%, you are on a direct trajectory to poverty in retirement.
Harsh but true.
5 to 10% secures a baseline middle-class existence. 10 to 15% elevates you to upper middle class. 15 to 20% puts you in the realm of the truly rich. And if you are aggressively paying yourself 20% or more, you are entering the financial independence, retire early territory.
The FIRE movement. But the critical takeaway for you listening right now isn't that you have to start at 20% today.
No, definitely not. The McIntyres, our prototype couple, they started by automating just 4% of their income.
4% is tiny.
But every time they received a cost of living adjustment or a promotion or a bonus, they routed a portion of that new capital directly into the automated machine.
They slowly ratcheted up their savings rate without ever feeling a decrease in their lifestyle?
Exactly. They captured the lifestyle creep before it happened.
So we've established the mechanism of capital capture and the tax-advantaged routing. But here is where the average investor usually hits a massive wall of analysis paralysis.
Yeah, logging into the 401k portal for the first time.
It's terrifying. You log in, and you are staring at a menu of 30 different mutual funds. Small cap, large cap, value, growth, emerging markets, municipal bonds.
Wall Street uses complexity as a moat to keep people intimidated.
So how do we automate the actual deployment of the capital so we don't self-sabotage?
We deploy what we can call the boring portfolio.
I like the sound of that.
The foundation of wealth preservation and growth is asset allocation, right? Balancing equities like stocks for growth and fixed income like bonds for stability.
Historically, you had to actively manage this.
You did. You'd have a high concentration of stocks in your 20s, and as you approached your 60s, you'd have to manually sell off equities and buy bonds to reduce your sequence of returns risk.
It was basically a part-time job.
And today, nobody has time for that. Enter target date mutual funds and modern algorithmic robo-advisors.
This is the ultimate set-it-and-forget-it mechanism.
Completely. A target date fund offered by massive custodians like Vanguard, Fidelity, or T. Rowe Price. You literally just pick the year you roughly plan to retire, say 2055.
Okay.
You buy the 2055 target date fund. That's it.
And behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, portfolio managers and algorithms use modern portfolio theory to instantly diversify every dollar you invest across thousands of domestic and international equities and bonds.
And the truly automated magic is the glide path, right?
Yes, the glide path.
Yeah.
As the year 2055 approaches, the algorithm automatically rebalances the portfolio. It slowly, systematically sells off volatile stocks and buys stable bonds.
So you never have to manually adjust your risk profile.
Never. Or, if you use a robo-advisor like Betterment or Wealthfront for your post-tax investing, the algorithms take it a step further.
Oh, so?
By automatically executing tax loss harvesting, selling assets at a loss to offset your capital gains taxes, all while you sleep.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
We operate in an era dominated by financial entertainment. You go on social media and you see people day trading zero-day options, flipping crypto, or trying to find the next NVIDIA before earnings drop.
The dopamine hits.
Right. The idea of putting all of your capital into a single, automated, highly diversified target date fund sounds mind-numbingly boring. You aren't going to get rich quick, and you certainly have nothing exciting to talk about at a dinner party.
I will lean entirely into that critique.
Yeah.
Boring is the point.
Boring works.
Boring works beautifully. If you look at the data, and there are decades of peer-reviewed financial studies on this, active retail trading almost universally destroys wealth.
The average retail investor drastically underperforms the S&P 500 index.
Why? Because of human psychology.
Action bias. We feel like we have to do something to make money.
Yes. Charlie Munger famously said that one of the keys to investing is just sitting on your hands.
It's so hard to do, though.
It is. When the market is in a massive bubble, FOMO, the fear of missing out, screams at you to buy at the top.
And when the market crashes and there's blood in the streets,
your amygdala triggers a literal panic response. It screams at you to liquidate your portfolio at the exact bottom. We are neurologically wired to buy high and sell low.
But automation overrides the amygdala.
Exactly. By setting up a fixed, automated contribution from every single paycheck, you are executing what's called dollar cost averaging.
Because the exact same amount of money goes in every 2 weeks, regardless of the macroeconomic headlines.
Right. And the math works in your favor. When the market is overvalued and expensive, your fixed contribution automatically buys fewer shares.
And when the market crashes like it did in 2008 or 2020,
Your fixed contribution automatically buys more shares. You are systematically buying equity on sale without having to muster the courage to click the buy button while the financial news is predicting the end of the world.
the investors who emerged from the 2008 financial crisis with exponential wealth were the ones who just had their automated systems running blindly in the background.
They bypass their own flawed human emotions. Wall Street is handled by the algorithm.
So we've automated the paper assets, but that brings us to physical assets. For the vast majority of the American middle class, the largest single asset on their personal balance sheet will be real estate.
Real estate is huge in this framework.
And the data presented here regarding housing is just stark. The median net worth of an American homeowner is $195,400. The median net worth of a renter is just $5,400.
Homeowners are statistically 36 times wealthier than renters.
Which is a crazy multiple.
The author takes a very hardline stance on this.
Yeah.
You cannot achieve significant wealth by renting. When you pay rent, you are purchasing a consumable product. It is a 100% loss.
You are simply funding the capitalization rate of your landlord's real estate portfolio.
Exactly. When you pay a mortgage, you are utilizing a forced savings mechanism that builds equity in an appreciating asset.
Now, we really need to dive into the mechanics of why real estate is such a powerful wealth driver for the middle class, and it comes down to a concept called leverage, or OPM, other people's money.
Leverage is everything in real estate.
Let's say you buy a $500,000 home and you put down 20%, so that's $100,000 in cash.
Okay.
If the real estate market appreciates by just 5% that year, the home goes up in value by $25,000.
Which is where people get confused.
How so?
They look at the asset appreciation of 5% and think, well, the stock market averages 8 to 10%, so stocks are better.
Right. But they are completely ignoring the leverage.
Yes.
The house went up 5%, but your return on equity, your return on your actual $100,000 cash investment is 25%. You gain 25 grand on a 100 grand investment.
Because the bank lent you $400,000, but you get to keep 100% of the asset's appreciation.
That is the power of leverage as a tailwind.
But as we know, leverage comes with a cost.
Yeah.
Debt.
Right.
A standard 30-year mortgage means you are paying interest to an institution for 3 decades. In many high interest rate environments, you might pay more in pure interest over the life of the loan than the house was originally worth.
Which is sickening when you look at an amortization schedule.
It really is.
Which is why the book introduces an incredibly elegant mathematical workaround, the biweekly mortgage payment hack.
This is one of my favorite tactics.
To understand why this works, you have to understand how banks structure debt. For the first 10 years of a 30-year mortgage, the vast majority of your monthly payment isn't even touching the principal.
No, it's going straight to the bank as interest. The bank front loads their profit.
So how do you break the amortization curve?
Normally, you make 1 payment a month, 12 payments a year. The hack is to take your monthly payment, cut it precisely in half, and automate that half payment every 2 weeks.
Okay, so if your mortgage is $2,000 a month, you set up an automated transfer of $1,000 every 14 days.
And the magic is in the Gregorian calendar. There are 52 weeks in a year.
Right.
If you pay every 2 weeks, you execute 26 half payments. Mathematically, 26 half payments equal 13 full monthly payments.
By aligning your mortgage with a biweekly payroll schedule, you seamlessly sneak a 13th stealth payment into the year without ever really feeling a pinch in your monthly operating budget.
And because you explicitly designate that extra payment to hit the principal, you directly attack the amortization curve.
Depending on your interest rate, that single automated extra payment each year will shave 5 to 10 years off a 30-year loan,
saving you tens of thousands of dollars in interest.
Now, I have to challenge the book's absolutist stance on real estate here, because the American housing market is vastly different today than it was decades ago when this was first conceptualized.
Very different.
Is renting always a path to poverty? We live in an era of hypermobility. Tech workers, consultants, remote employees, they might change cities every 3 years.
Right. Buying doesn't make sense if you're moving that often.
Furthermore, if you look at coastal Tier 1 cities like San Francisco, Seattle, or New York, The barrier to entry for a down payment is astronomical, and the rent-to-buy ratios are completely skewed. Doesn't renting sometimes make strategic mathematical sense?
It's a critical modern nuance. Yes, renting can make strategic sense if you require high mobility or if buying would force you to become house poor.
Where all your liquidity is tied up in a single illiquid asset.
Exactly. However, if you choose the renting path, you must understand the opportunity cost.
Right.
If you aren't building equity through a forced savings mortgage, you must have an incredibly aggressive, highly automated investment strategy in the equities market to offset the wealth you aren't building in real estate.
The danger of renting is that without the forced aspect of a mortgage, most people simply inflate their lifestyle instead of investing the difference.
They rent a nicer apartment instead of buying index funds.
That's a great distinction. If you rent, your equity has to be built in the market.
Yep.
Now, returning to the homeowner, what if your mortgage servicer is archaic? A lot of traditional banks won't allow you to set up a biweekly schedule, or worse, they try to charge you a setup fee to do it.
Oh, never pay a bank a fee to pay them your own money faster.
It's absurd.
The text offers clear workarounds for this. If they won't automate biweekly payments, simply divide your monthly payment by 12 and add that amount to your monthly payment, ensuring the portal applies the overage directly to the principal.
Okay, that's easy.
Or use your annual tax refund or corporate bonus to make one lump sum principal payment a year. The execution method doesn't really matter as long as it is automated.
So we've just established how to use a mortgage as a mechanical advantage, using leverage to build wealth. But there is a dark mirror to leverage.
Bad debt.
If a mortgage is a tailwind, consumer debt is an anchor. It is a mathematical black hole that will actively devour any attempt to become an automatic millionaire.
We are talking about toxic, unsecured consumer debt, specifically the crisis of credit card debt.
The average American household is carrying roughly $8,400 in revolving credit card balances.
And the credit card industry is built on weaponizing human psychology and compound interest against the consumer.
Let's look at the math because it's frightening. If you have an $8,000 balance on a card with a 29% annual percentage rate, which is increasingly common today, and you only make the minimum payment required by the bank, how long does it take to amortize that debt?
Most people think, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 years?
Right. The reality is making only the minimum payment on high-interest debt can take 30-plus years to clear.
30 years.
You will pay back double, triple, or even quadruple the original principal in pure interest. The minimum payment algorithm is explicitly designed by the credit card issuer to keep you in a state of debt servitude for the maximum duration legally permissible.
It's incredibly insidious. And the trap usually snaps shut right at the retail counter. We've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
You're buying $100 worth of merchandise at a department store, and the cashier pitches you. Would you like to save 10% on your purchase today by opening a store card?
And it sounds great in the moment.
But you trade $10 in present-day savings for a revolving credit line at 24% interest that might trap you for a decade. It is the ultimate failure of hyperbolic discounting.
So to eradicate this, the author introduces a tactical framework called DOLP. Done on last payment?
DOLP. It requires brutal surgical intervention.
Step 1. Stop digging. You have to physically remove the credit cards from your daily carry. You cannot get out of a hole if you continue to operate the machinery that dug it.
Put them in a block of ice in the freezer if you have to.
Literally. Step 2. Renegotiate the terms of engagement. Call the credit issuers.
People don't realize you can just do this.
Right. If you have a history of on-time payments, request a rate reduction. Often they will drop the rate by several hundred basis points just to prevent you from doing a balance transfer to a competitor.
And step 3 is consolidate. Move the fragmented high-interest balances into a single fixed-rate personal loan or a 0% balance transfer card, and then automate the aggressive paydown.
Now, here is where the book's philosophy creates a fascinating friction point between pure mathematics and human psychology.
I love this part.
Bach advocates for a bury the past, jump to the future formula. If I have $10,000 in credit card debt at 29% interest, he suggests I split my available capital. Half goes to paying down the toxic debt, and the other half goes into my automated 401k investments.
Right.
But if we look at this purely mathematically, shouldn't I halt all investments until the debt is gone?
The math says yes.
A guaranteed 29% return by paying off the credit card absolutely crushes a historical 10% return in the S&P 500. The math unequivocally states, pay off the highest interest debt first.
You are 100% correct on the spreadsheet. Mathematically, it is entirely suboptimal to allocate capital into an asset yielding 10% while simultaneously bleeding capital to liability costing 29%.
So why do it?
Because this is where behavioral finance diverges from pure mathematics. If you optimize for the spreadsheet, you will likely fail the psychological test.
How so? Because you don't feel the progress.
Yes, exactly. Personal finance is 20% intellect and 80% behavior.
Wow. Yeah.
If you spend 3, 4, or 5 years grinding away, allocating every spare dollar to erase past mistakes, it is incredibly demoralizing.
You look at your net worth, and for years, it just reads 0.
You feel like you are running on a treadmill? But more fundamentally, if you do not build the behavioral muscle memory of paying yourself first today, you will not magically develop it 5 years from now when the debt is finally gone.
It goes back to acute discipline and habit formation.
Yes. By splitting the capital, even if it's mathematically inefficient, you are engineering the emotional environment for success.
Seeing your automated investment account actually grow, seeing that balance compound and tick upward every 2 weeks, provides the psychological momentum and dopamine required to stick with the grueling, austere process of debt eradication.
You have to tangibly feel like you are building a future, not just serving as sentence for your past.
That is a profound insight. You are optimizing for human behavior, not just algebraic efficiency.
Exactly.
So let's look at the architecture we've built so far. The toxic debt is being systematically eradicated via DOLP.
Sure.
Your investments are compounding in the background via automated target date funds. You are hacking your mortgage amortization curve biweekly.
Check.
But no system exists in a vacuum. Life introduces chaos. Recessions happen. Companies downsize. Roofs cave in. How do we build a moat around this wealth machine?
You build a moat with liquidity. The final structural component is the sleep well at night safety net.
The emergency fund.
You need a strict, fully funded emergency cash cushion, completely segregated from your daily operations. The baseline recommendation is a minimum of 3 months of vital living expenses.
And to be clear, this capital is not deployed in the stock market. We aren't chasing yield with this money.
Absolutely not. Emergency capital must be liquid and insulated from market volatility.
You deploy this into high-yield money market accounts, or use Treasury Direct to buy U.S. Treasuries.
The critical design element here is, once again, friction. This safety net must reside at a completely different banking institution than your primary checking account.
Because if you open your mobile banking app and see your checking account right next to $20,000 in emergency cash, the human brain will eventually rationalize accessing it.
Yes, the text uses a break glass in case of emergency analogy. We have a tendency to define emergency very loosely when the cash is easily accessible.
Holiday vacation is not an emergency.
A noisy transmission on a functioning car is not an emergency. Sudden unemployment, a massive medical deductible, or a critical infrastructure failure in your home, those are emergencies.
By placing the funds at a separate bank, where a transfer takes 48 hours to clear, you introduce enough friction to force a cooling-off period.
You give your prefrontal cortex time to evaluate if it's a true emergency before the capital is deployed.
Use friction to protect yourself from yourself. I love that.
It's essential.
Now, there is one final component to this system that initially seems entirely counterintuitive for a book focused on aggressive wealth accumulation.
The tithing.
Yes, the concept of automated tithing, or charity. The recommendation is to automate the giving of 1 to 10% of your income.
Right.
In a strictly rational economic model, giving away capital you could be compounding seems irrational. Why is this included?
It seems economically irrational, but it is psychologically vital.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The purpose of wealth isn't just a high score on a bank statement. It is security and freedom. When you are hyper-focused on accumulating capital, it's very easy to slip into a scarcity mindset.
You constantly feel like you never have enough no matter how much the portfolio grows.
You become a dragon hoarding gold.
A scarcity mindset operates from a place of fear.
Precisely. But when you automate charitable giving, no matter how small the dollar amount, you forcefully disrupt that neural pathway.
You signal to your own brain, I have enough to take care of myself, and I have an excess to deploy for the benefit of others.
It forcefully shifts you into an abundance mindset. It makes you tangibly feel wealthy and secure today, long before your net worth ever crosses the seven-figure threshold.
It changes your relationship with capital from one of anxiety to one of utility.
Exactly.
That reframing is incredibly powerful. All right, let's take a step back and look at the entire architectural blueprint we've deconstructed today. We've moved from theory to a concrete, automated machine.
Let's review it.
Let's do a rapid-fire recap of the structure.
Component 1, jump to the front of the line. Pay yourself first, directing a minimum of 10% of your gross income straight into a pre-tax, employer-matched retirement vehicle.
Component 2, bypass action bias and market panic. Automate the deployment of that capital using target date funds or robo-advisors. Let the algorithms handle the diversification and the tax loss harvesting. Remember, boring works.
Component 3, hack the amortization curve. If you own real estate, implement the automated biweekly mortgage strategy to sneak in a 13th payment, accelerating your equity build and shaving years off your debt.
Component 4, eradicate the anchor of toxic consumer debt using the DOLP system. Stop digging, renegotiate the interest rates, consolidate the balances, and optimize for psychological momentum by investing and paying down debt simultaneously.
Component 5, build the moat. Secure 3 months of liquid living expenses in a separate, high-yield account, utilizing friction to protect it from false emergencies.
And component 6, cultivate the abundance mindset by automating charitable giving, signaling to your brain that you operate from a position of surplus, not scarcity.
When you zoom out and look at all those components functioning together, it all points to one fundamental underlying truth about wealth creation.
Which is what?
It's the realization that the greatest existential threat to your long-term financial security isn't inflation. It isn't the Federal Reserve or corporate earnings or a housing bubble.
So what is it?
The absolute biggest risk to your wealth is trusting your own future willpower.
Relying on the smartphone battery of discipline to never run out.
Exactly. By making wealth automatic, you are legally and structurally bypassing your own human flaws.
You are acknowledging that you will get tired, you will get distracted, you will experience fear during a recession, and you will be tempted by consumerism.
Instead of trying to become a perfectly disciplined robot, you're building an automated system that succeeds despite your humanity.
You don't need a financial crash diet. You just need to design the choice architecture once and let the physics of compounding do the heavy lifting.
Set it up once and let it run.
So we want to leave you with a direct challenge. Do not try to implement this entire blueprint today.
No, that requires too much willpower.
Take exactly 1 hour this week. Just 1 hour of acute discipline. Choose one component, whether it is logging into your HR portal to bump your 401k contribution by 2%, or setting up the bi-weekly automated transfer for your mortgage.
Build one piece of the machine and walk away.
That single hour is the initiation sequence to becoming an automatic millionaire.
The architecture works, you just have to flip the switch.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.